This conference will now be recorded.
Oops. The first thing I do is make a mistake. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, everybody. This is Teri Bayus with the Central Coast Writers Conference. I'm with Chantelle, Aimee, Osman, and we are going to talk to you about what is planned for the conference and how to best prepare yourself for the conference. We find that this helps people a lot because writers are introverts by trade, and so the more we can give you to feel like you're comfortable at the conference, then the better it is all going to be. So to start with the basics, the Central Coast Writers Conference this year is September 26th through 28th and is at Cuesta College in San Luis Obispo, California. We are hosting everybody in the city of Morro Bay. So the staff will be housed in one hotel, but there's many hotels there for you to stay at. We do get a special discount when booking a hotel in Morro Bay. So make sure you use the link on our website, which is www.centralcoastwritersconference.com, or when you call, mention the Central Coast Writers Conference and you will get a special deal. So for the schedule for this year, on September 26th at 10 a.m., we start with master classes, and those go to 4:30. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll have our keynote, which is still to be announced. Then on Friday morning, September 27th, we start with regular classes at 9 a.m. You can come and register as early as 8 a.m. We have a whole situation up there that is, there's vendors and there's a bookstore. We'll have book signings there, and so that's where you come in and you register, and then we move on over to our opening keynote, which will be Sam Horn. Sam Horn is an international bestseller. She's talked at the White House. She's talked for Oprah. She's pretty amazing, and she will pretty much light you on fire and get you up and going. She just came out with a book that is called Someday Is Not a Day of the Week. And then after Sam, we go to our workshops. They're each 1-hour workshops, and then we have a fabulous lunch out in the courtyard in the sunshine. Each of the staff will be sitting at a different table, so you'll be able to sit down and have lunch with your favorite author, agent, or publisher. And then we go back to classes, and then we end at about 6 o'clock on Friday evening. And then we go over to the Inn at Morro Bay, where we'll be having our networking event. This includes wine and cheese and food and lots of fun activities with the whole staff and anybody who would like to come. That is the only thing that is an additional cost of $50, and that gets you everything, all the wine you can drink, all the beer you can drink, and all the food you can eat. Then Saturday morning, we start again at 9 o'clock, and we go till 4 o'clock, and then we have a closing keynote where we all come back together and watch the closing keynote, which is Mary Lo Verde. Again, another inspiring, wonderful, amazing woman. I'm going to talk real quickly about the master classes because those are new. We have 9 this year. They are limited to only 20 students in each class, and they are 6 hours from 10 to 4:30 on Thursday. The whole point of these is to have it so it's more of an interactive. Each of the workshop teachers will kind of force you to write and do things, and it's pretty amazing. We did them last year. We had 6. They all sold out, and people loved them very much. So this year we have Jeannie Bowerman, who will be teaching you how to navigate Hollywood without living there. Very few of us live in Hollywood, but she's been successful and knows how to be successful in selling screenplays and working on movies from outside of Hollywood. Sam Horman and Mary Loverty will be doing a masterclass on turning your books into a profit center. Both of them wrote one book and then went on the speakers tour and did all sorts of amazing things. So if you only have one book done or you're about to get a book done, this would be a great way to teach you how to keep making money off of it and how to parlay it into a full career. Jordan Rosenfeld is one of my favorite teachers, and she just came out with a book called How to Write a Page Turner, about writing tension. Everybody who goes to that class will get a copy of her book, but in all of my years of going to the Writers Conference, I think she is one of the best teachers, and I would highly recommend if you want to learn how to put tension in your story, whether it be a screenplay, a poem, a memoir, a novel. Jordan's class is a good one to take. Then we have Mark Parsons and Wendelin Van Drennen. They are a married couple who both write very successful young adult novels, and they will be talking to you about best practices, what's going on, what's new. They have different ways of marketing their young adult novels than anyone I've ever seen, and they're really an inspiring couple. Deborah LeBlanc will be writing or be working on the Secrets to ebook, just telling you how to do self-publishing if you've decided that's the way to go. If you're done with your work or you've decided that's going to go and you're not done, it would be a class for you. Our other superstar, Jonathan Mayberry, will be teaching the publishing process. He doesn't feel that there's ever been a class that encompasses everything from the first draft to your book on the shelf. And so Jonathan, who has written, I think, like 35 of these books, and he writes comic books, and now he's writing a Netflix series called V-Wars. There is nobody more kind and wonderful to teach you how this process works. Then we have Peter Dunn, contemplative memoir. So what he does, I call it the crying class, but it's basically teaching you how to pull the emotion out of any kind of memoir that you're doing, or it's not just a series of events, this happened here, this happened there, to pull the thing that really made the book bubble up and want to happen. And I interrupted. He taught it last year. It's sold out and oversold with over 10 people on the list, so I promised to bring him back this year. So if you didn't get to take it last year, you can take it this year. And then we have our very first masterclass of poetry. Lorianne Bosseler, who just became the Poet Laureate for Santa Barbara County, will be teaching tone and poetry. I, you, him, we. I think there's something else, but I can't see it on the screen. So it's the very first masterclass in poetry. If you have a work of poetry you want to tighten up, you can bring it if you want to start from scratch, but you get to spend 6 hours with one of the best poets, I think, in the world, learning how to do it. And then Catherine Ann Jones does The Way of Story. She has a whole series. She's part of the masterclass, the series of that, and she teaches this story of how to carve your story out of stone, and it's pretty amazing. So those are our master classes. They are $150 each, and they're limited to 20 students, so it's very intimate, it's very small, and by the end of it, you really kind of know each other. I know that all of our presenters last year went on to continue mentoring almost everybody that was in the class. All right, so now I'm going to introduce Chantelle Osman, who is our speaker today. And, well, hang on, Teri's trying to figure out how to do this. We did it successfully twice, and now, there she is. There she is. Can everybody see Chantelle? Okay, and so Chantelle has been teaching for us for 5 years. She has the unfortunate circumstance of life of being my friend, and so I don't do this without her. She teaches all over the world. She's taught in Thailand, and she is now a publisher and an editor, and like literally anything bookish is Chantelle. So she is coming to us from New York in her new apartment. No, old apartment.
Yes, old apartment. Soon to be old apartment, as I'm currently in it. But all right, so let's see if this works, since it's now my turn. Okay, how's that look? Can everybody see and hear?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I am going to talk to you about how to prepare for a conference. I know that many of you watching this video, this is your first time, and what a wonderful choice for your first conference to come to Central Coast. So welcome. We're looking forward to meeting all of you, and here are just a few tips and tricks, and I hope that Teri chimes in with things that I have forgotten that are very important to add. So,
okay, just one thing I'll chime in right
first
now.
First is be prepared. So isn't that helpful? How to prepare? Be prepared. But the first thing you have to be prepared to do are to learn. Obviously, that's why you're here. We can all be better writers. I remember I was teaching, I think it was at a Dragon Con a few years back, and there was a multiple best-selling author taking my class in the front row. And I kept trying to teach and then kept stopping and staring at them. And after a while, I finally stopped the class and I said, you know, why are you here? You should be up here. Would you like to switch with me? I could possibly learn from you, but there's no way that you can be learning from me. You're so much more experienced. And they said one of the smartest things that I think I've ever heard, and that is, I often come and take some of the classes to remind myself of the basics, because at a point you get so mired in all the little details that you forget the big picture. And so, you know, if you think that you're more advanced, you know, take maybe a basic track again, just to remind yourself of some of the rules and the things and what's changed in your genre or in, marketing or publishing. So, you know, be prepared to learn. Secondly, be prepared to make friends. I mean, as Teri said, we're close. And why are we close? Because I met her my first year at Central Coast Writers Conference. I'm friends with Jonathan Mayberry and Peter Dunn, and I can keep listing it, and we're close. And Jeannie Bowerman. I talk to her almost every day because this is a really tight-knit group, and there's just something so casual about the atmosphere that it's going to make it very easy for you to network. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. Next reason is to meet mentors. I mean, like Teri said, in the workshops, the master classes last year, we've kept in touch with a lot of the students in our classes. I did one on screenwriting with Jeannie Bowerman, and I know that we've heard from many of ours, and that continues on. This is a great place. I actually credit a lot of my success in publishing to David Morrell, and I met him when he was speaking at a conference, I'm going to say, over 10 years ago now, probably 12 years ago, and I went up afterwards and started talking to him and asked him some questions to clarify some statements he'd made. And to this day, you know, I talked to him 2 days ago, and he has done so much for my success. So you never know what little thing or who you're going to talk to that is going to really stay in your life forever. And of course, resulting in that, hopefully, be prepared to succeed, because, you know, this is a lot of you listening, probably this is your first novel, it's still in your drawer, you know, you've been working on it for a long time, and you really just have to gear yourself up to take the steps to allow yourself to succeed as a writer. And that doesn't always mean, you know, a big 5 publishing house. It might just be, you know, self-publishing for your family, or whatever part of that journey, you know, is your goal. You have to allow yourself to succeed at it. So, how do we prepare? So what should you bring? If this is your first conference, you know, what do you wear? Bring your laptop or whatever you prefer to write with. You know, if you're a slow writer, laptop is good. If you're used to writing in a notebook, great. And how to dress, you know, it's so many different climates at every conference I've ever been to. Obviously, as Teri said, we'll be eating outside. So, you know, make sure you wear sunblock, because that's happened to me a couple of times. But also it gets to be cold inside. So bring something to cover up with, you know, layers. And do you have to be formal? No, not at all. You should not necessarily be, you know, super casual, like tank top, flip-flops, funny slippers, that sort of thing. I would not recommend, because Well, actually, the bunny slippers would totally work for me. But unfortunately, our mothers were all right, and you only have one chance at a first impression. So if you're going there to meet a mentor or meet a new tribe or meet an agent or an editor like me, I will look and notice, if you're being professional. Because even though this is a very casual atmosphere, it's also, this is our business, hopefully going to be your business if it isn't already. So, once you're not writing in your sweatpants, in the dark in your apartment, you have to put on your business hat and be a little bit more professional. Bring your willingness to learn. It's like that story that I told you before. It's important to cover the gamut from basics to everything else. And I have another slide talking about choosing classes, but I'll talk a little bit about it here. When I teach, I notice, let me rephrase. I often advise my students to take, let's say they're not doing great at dialogue. I'll say, please go buy a screenwriting book, take a screenwriting class, go to a screenwriting workshop. If you're not really great at description, I'd highly recommend this poetry masterclass because, when you're writing poetry, you don't have the luxury of every single word that you can use and, maybe 60,000 of them. You have to create an image and condense it. And so poetry really helps that. So think out of the box in your learning. Consider trying something new and experimenting with your writing. You never know what's going to come out of that. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over, it's never going to develop and you're not going to grow. So bring your moxie. And this goes to the networking point again. We're often quiet, shy, retiring. Obviously, Teri and I are, you can tell. But we tend to be, as writers in this group, we're not the most socially adept sometimes. And so it's very easy to just sit in the back of a classroom and not say anything, and not approach people and not talk because you're scared. And we'll talk more about this in a minute, but make sure that, you bring that little bit of moxie with you so that you have the pep to go up and, approach somebody or talk to somebody or make a new friend. And I highly recommend bringing your business cards. And I know if you ever listen to other agents and editors talk, sometimes agents and them want a business card. Sometimes they don't. But I highly recommend that you have them either way because, first of all, you're going to exchange them with friends. Please have at least one side of it be blank and not particularly shiny because I know when I get them at conferences, I like to make a note about the person. I might not remember your name, but if I flip that card over and go, oh, you're the one, writing about the dragon that's rampaging on Texas, and you went to the same college I did, I'll remember who you are because I had the chance to make a note. And it's too easy to forget somebody, when you're being so overwhelmed meeting new people. So highly recommend that. And also a tip that somebody gave me years ago about pitching was if you're planning on pitching agents or editors, consider having a separate stack of business cards that actually have your photo on them. Now, I hate having my photo taken, so that's never been my thing, and I wouldn't suggest using this in everyday life. But it's another way to get somebody to remember you. They go back up to their hotel room and go, oh, I should have asked for this manuscript. I've been thinking about it a little bit more. I wonder who that person was. Name escaped me. They might not remember your name. They'll remember your face. So slight pitching tip in advance of my pitching slide. When you take my classes, you'll know that I tend to skip all around and cover things too early, et cetera, etc. But we'll always get there in the end and it'll be fun. So picking the right track. So we talked a little bit about that. Look at everything, basically pre-game for this conference. And that goes for agents and editors that you want to have one-on-one sessions with, or the faculty that you want to have those one-on-one like mentorship sessions with. Know who the people are. Look at all the classes and go, again, think of, do I need a refresher on the basics of this? If it's somebody really interesting teaching the class, you might get more out of it, even though it's something you feel you know very well. Also, take advanced things. One of the things that I think is very important to do even if you're there just to write, which we will be doing plenty of, make sure you take some business classes too. You know, we offer things on, you know, publishing, on marketing, on editing, on social media. And these are very important classes to take, because it's not, your writing journey does not end when you type the end on the page. You know, you might be happy with that and that's successful, but you really need to have some knowledge of how publishing works, of how agenting works, of what people are looking for, you know, in an edit, and their classes there. And also, you know, social media is vital right now. It is, you know, not, I'd say at least 50% in the hands of the author, no matter what publisher you're with, you know, to create a presence and a brand online. And that sounds overwhelming, but our classes there are definitely going to make it, you know, give you the tips and tricks to make it easy, so that you can do it. But make sure you take at least a couple of those panels in or workshops in if you have time.
Can I add something here? Also, so when we put down the tracks, we lay it out just so for the ease of like the new writer or the screenwriter or the poet to see everything in there. But know that it's like Chantelle said, it's good to hop around. We also do a video on almost everybody who's going to be presenting for us. So I encourage people to click on that video. It's usually only like 2 to 3 minutes long, unless it's Chantelle and I, and then it's 45 minutes. But and see if your energy matches with them, because, you know, like if you're not a high energy person, I'm going to make you crazy and you don't want to sit through one of my classes. So take a look at that, because on each of our presenters geez, I've lost my voice. My brain's good. Anyway, if on each of our presenters' website profile, we'll have a little video of them talking about what they're going to be doing and what to expect in the class. And then also the last thing is, if you get into a class and you absolutely don't like it, or it wasn't what you thought, feel free to move around. We don't make you stuck with your schedule. And you know, there's always me and my staff around. So if you're having something and you're like, well, I signed up for these classes and they're not jiving with me, we will talk to you and lead you to the right class.
Yeah, and as far as like the panels or things that you don't have to sign up for, we are used to people wandering in and out. I do it myself at conferences. I'll go, you know, especially if they're like 3 or 4 really great ones back to back, let alone like 9 of the master classes, which you cannot wander in and out of. But, you know, you want to maybe get a little bit from several of them. So it doesn't, we know that it doesn't mean that you don't like us or we're boring you, or we've offended you, just that you want to get as much out of the experience as you can. So, you know, that is a good point, Teri, because that's something we don't want attendees to worry about at all. You know, it's a very easygoing experience and we want you to get the experience that you want out of it. So we really don't have, you know, an expectation of how you should do it, or, you know, when or how. So conference etiquette. I know, again, it's getting out of our comfort zones, because we tend to be, I mean, depending on if it's, you know, writing is your full-time job or you do it a lot, you might not be interacting with colleagues every day. You know, you don't get that like small talk water cooler conference with, you know, virtual strangers that you're going to get at this conference. But you'll find that those strangers quickly become friends. I know Teri and I were talking about this yesterday. How many people have found a writing group or best friends? Or she was telling me about some writers who met a couple of years back at the conference and now they run together several times a week. Like, this is a really great place to find your tribe. But do remember that you're networking. So this doesn't, I mean, it's a hard balance to have sometimes. You don't want to walk up to either somebody you're looking to have as an agent or an editor or as your mentor and necessarily pitch them, nor should you be pitching your fellow attendees. It should start in a, you know, casual lunch or dinner situation, more as a conversation, and make sure, you know, you ask them what they're writing, and then that's a great way for them to ask you back. And that way you can pitch yourself with a level of humility without walking up and just being like, hello, here's my card, I've written this. hopefully they'll ask you for one, and don't hesitate to give them something at the end of the conversation. But it's not like you have to worry about pitching everyone you talk to. Be human, have a conversation. Do not follow an agent to the restroom. That has happened. Do not push a manuscript under the restroom door. That sort of thing, obvious things, but you're there it's a more casual networking experience. And have courage with this, because it's such a wonderful place to meet. One of these writers might be your idol, or after you've heard them speak, could become one, and it's going to be a little nerve-wracking. You go, I'm going to go to the same cocktail party they're at, and there's no way I can approach them. Well, what's the thing a writer likes the most is to be told how great their writing is. So that's a good, icebreaker right there. Or, I really enjoyed your class. I don't care at what level it is. Jonathan Mayberry loves hearing that and will gladly answer questions or talk to you in any situation. Most of the presenters and faculty are like that. That's why Teri picks them. So it's this really nurturing experience. So don't worry about, walking up to somebody and not really having anything to say or being nervous to meet them. I could tell Teri, should I tell them about meeting Doug for the first time, or should I move on? And there's silence.
No, I'm sorry. I muted myself because there's a guy mowing my lawn out front. And there was also a lizard that just ran over my foot, and I screamed. So yes, you should definitely tell me about Doug.
Well, so, you'll stumble into these situations sometimes where you think you're going to be terribly embarrassed, and it ends up really funny. So the first year that I met Jeannie Bowerman and Doug Richardson, who's a very good friend of hers, and Karen Richardson, his wife, you'll meet as well, and she's also lovely. But Jeannie had apparently wanted to take one of my classes, but she was teaching at the same time. And so Doug came in and asked, could he record? And I get a little nervous about that because I've had people like sell them or try to copy the workshop, and he was very nice. And he said, I said, sure, if it's for another faculty member, no problem. But I thought it was a little strange, and I had no idea who this man was. And so afterwards, that night was the lovely cocktail party at the Inn at Morro Bay, which you should go to this conference just to attend this. The level of food and wine that Teri brings in is unbelievably wonderful. But so he approached me and said, I wasn't intending to take your class. I was just doing this as a favor for Jeannie. And, I really liked it. And I was like, oh, that's very nice if you think so much. And he's like, well, tell me a little bit about what you do. And I started talking, and he said, well, do you write? And I said, well, yes, as a matter of fact, I just finished a screenplay with my co-writer. And I said, I guess it's kind of like Die Hard at the Zoo. And the conversation around me stops. And I'm like, I know I've just said something wrong, but I don't know what I said. And I find out after, and he's like, oh, that actually sounds good, and tell me more about it. So we keep chatting. Well, later, I find out he was the producer of Die Hard 2, as well as very other similar films. And so I was mortified that I had just accidentally pitched, my Die Hard at the Zoo screenplay to this man who was more than familiar with all things Die Hard. And we've been great friends since then, because I went up to him after and I said, I'm really sorry. I was unaware that you were, that Doug Richardson, and I guess I should have done my homework. See, second lesson, do your homework. But we've been friends ever since, and we laugh about that all the time. And so even if you do make a faux pas, don't worry about it. Some of the best relationships can come out of those. All right, so courage, yeah. Okay, so more on courage. We're all, especially the first-time attendees, hopefully you're here to follow your passion and turn that passion into a profession. But always make sure that you're listening to these things with that level of passion, knowing that this is, something that you really want to do. Be confident. Be confident in your writing. When you talk to other people about it, don't be like, I don't know this, I've never been to a conference before, I don't know what I'm doing. Make sure that you you've written something, so be confident in what you've written. Don't apologize for it, or how much you write or how little you write. We're all different. Be willing to change. You know, you're going to get some feedback, and not all of it is going to be great, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with the next slide, I think. But make sure that, you know, you listen to feedback and listen to other ways of doing things. And like I said, you know, I'm certainly not a poet by any means, and I'm not a big fan of poetry either. Apparently no soul. But I've learned a lot from studying poetry about, you know, like I said, description and using one word powerfully. And so keep your mind open and be willing to change and keep learning. Like I said, be professional. Even though I'm giving you these silly stories, we are all there. You know, this is essentially a work conference. You know, we might end up being friends, and Teri and I are going to laugh a lot. You know, but make sure you keep in the back of your mind at all times that, you know, this is the persona that you are putting forth in your professional situation. And lastly, of course,
sorry, I want to interject before you believe in yourself, because I started going. I just, so all of you will see me and know me, and I'm the gargacious one running around and laughing and having a good time. But 14 years ago, when I went to this conference for the first time, I was so insecure in my writing, I didn't talk to anybody for 2 years. For 2 years, I was at the conference, sat with presenters that I adored, and I was so insecure in my writing. Even though I had a weekly column in the newspaper, that I somehow believed that that wasn't writing. And so when I finally came out of my shell and introduced myself and started talking about what I was doing and not apologizing for being me or myself, is when I became a successful paid writer.
See, exactly. Perfect example. So yeah, and I think Teri made the believe in yourself point. So we will just move along, because I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on those of you, if you're there to do a pitch with an agent or editor. Few tips, you know, be courteous and respectful of time. So that means, you know, say please and thank you. Don't go over time. Don't ask for other people's time. You know, if they say no, you can ask for feedback, certainly, but don't try to sell them on something. There are other people waiting for their opportunity. And also sometimes these people do them back to back, and the agent or editor just needs a break. Please follow the standard format. This will help all of us and you. Basically, you sit down, you say, hello, my name is, I have written X title book, which is X number of words, and it is about, and then give me like basically your query letter pitch. You know, go act by act and make sure you hit only the highlights, name only the main characters, and give away the ending. So that's your standard format. Have passion for your work. If you sit down and you can't describe it, I think it was Carl Lennertz, who was vice president of HarperCollins, who said something like, if you can't pitch your work in 2 concise sentences so that your mother would want to read it, why would anybody else? So, you know, make sure that your passion comes through, because I know that personally as an editor, when I acquire, I will acquire as much the person as I do the book. I mean, it might be a pitch that the book I'm not really sure of. I mean, it might not be for me, but the person was so passionate about the writing. And as an editor, that's one thing I can't edit into your book, is passion for what you're writing. So that's definitely a plus. Make sure you have that. Know your business. Know what genre your book is. That's one of the first things you should say in your first sentence. You know, it is AX, you know, title, genre, word count. Because if the agent doesn't represent that genre, then it's already not for them. So make sure that you know where it fits, know your demographics for that sort of thing. And that's part of being prepared, you know, doing a little homework, knowing the background of the agent, looking them up, you know, at least Googling them, seeing who else they represent, is very important. And again, listen to feedback, because if they're sticking somewhere in your pitch, and this is always, you know, you can learn from every pitch. If they say no and you have some time left, say something like, where did I lose you? How could I improve? What turned you off about this? Because they're kind of the test market for everything else. So if they're sticking somewhere, somebody else likely might too. So listen to their feedback if you can get it. And do realize that rejection happens. And it's never or very rarely saying that you can't write. You know, if you go into a bookstore and you're looking for a book that suits your mood, you might pick up 1, 5, 10 and read the back cover. And if that one isn't yours that day, it's not like you throw it on the ground and stomp on it and go, that person should not be a writer. You just say, it's probably good, but it's just not for me, not today. And that's generally what a rejection is from an agent, an editor, or even a reader. So keep that in mind, because you do want that passionate agent, you want the passionate editor, you want the passionate reader. You don't really want the one who goes, I'm kind of okay, I'm sort of behind this. Like, you want the one who can't wait to read your work. So, you know, rejection happens, but realize that it's rarely a reflection on your actual writing. And I think that's all I have as far as tips and tricks. So I'll see you there. Teri, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yes, I did. Hang on, I got to figure out how to bring my face back.
Oh, actually, yes, I can also bring my face back.
Your face was there the whole time.
I know, but I couldn't see anything other than the slide.
Got it.
So I was probably making horrible faces.
As long as you didn't pick your nose, you're good, right? Can you see me now?
I can see you now, and I can hear you.
So one of the things that I have to bring up is bragging rights. Is the Central Coast Writers Conference just got chosen as the #1 writers conference in all of the West, and specifically California, by Writers Magazine, which we're very proud of. We've worked very hard for that. Yay! And the reason that it is so liked and doing so well is because we personally, like I said, I handpick the staff, so they're only kind people, and our whole goal is to get people writing. I did a seminar yesterday, and the guy was talking to me beforehand. He's like, you know, you have like 4 people in our group that said the Central Coast Writers Conference got them to write their novel, and they are now done with it. And we're finding that more and more, that, you know, if you stick with it and you stick with us, then we will get you where you need to be and then help you to market it afterwards. So, you know, this is my heart project and I love it very much, but everybody that is there to help you succeed. And, you know, and the interaction even between our staff is lots of books and deals come out of even our staff meeting each other for the first time and making some wonderful inroads. So it's a special place. Don't be afraid. I think that's the biggest deal, is that most authors, writers, anybody who can buy a pen is afraid to come because they think they're not a writer. Like there's some magical light that comes on over your head at some point. And
Wait,
that
you
honestly,
have that happen?
no, I haven't. I remember when I finished my first novel, I sent a copy of it to my editor, and I'm like, look, I'm a writer now. And she's like, well, what have you been for 15 years? I'm like, oh, you got a good point. So, you know, we do everything to make it so you're comfortable. I'm around all the time during the conference, so you can come up to me. Last year, one of the students came up and said, I finished a book. I need some of those blurbs that go in the front, which is, you know, so I sat her down with Jonathan Mayberry, and Jonathan Mayberry wrote her blurb for her. And it's as easy as that there. We are all there to help each other, to support each other, to make each other more comfortable in our writing career and make it a lot of fun. So if you're shy or you're having problems, come find me and I will insert you in a situation that you will quickly get comfortable with, if not from the beginning.
And the same thing goes for me. I mean, I'm always happy. I've been there long enough that, you know, if you can't find Teri, find me and I'll probably put you in a situation that you'll be terrified of for 1 second and then be very happy.
And then you'll get over it. Exactly. All right, so anybody have any questions, go ahead and write them in the chats and we will answer any questions that you have.
Is there an email that the people who are watching this later on a delay could email for clarifications?
Yeah, oh yeah, Central Coast Writers Conference at gmail.com. All the time. I don't sleep, so I'll answer all the time. It doesn't look like we have any questions. All right, so then you can go now to Central Coast Writers Conference at centralcoastwritersconference.com, and the schedule should be up around the end of May, beginning of June. This is the hardest part, is to schedule it all out. I'm currently still hiring, so once it's out, you're on the list, and we will email to you that is on the list, and you can check your classes there. I'll also help you with your classes. So if you're not sure what to take, I'll take a phone call with you and walk you through, because nobody knows the staff as well as I do, because I've been hiring them for, well, since I think the day after the conference last year. So so if you registered and you took advantage of the early bird, but you're not sure which classes to take, we will help you with that too.
All right, well, I guess we'll see everybody. Yeah.
We'll see you at the conference. Thank you, everybody. We'll figure out how to turn this off.